We had no bullets, no fucking money to go train. Like the army didn't have a budget. Like the 90s special forces fucking sucked.
John tells it like it is and leaves nothing up to interpretation.
We had enough money to buy where the fuck Saddam was without ever firing a shot. Boot on the ground in Afghanistan. I knew this was going to be fucked up later.
The Jedburgh Podcast, the Jedburgh Media Channel, and the Green Beret Foundation are proud to announce our partnership with the University of Health and Performance outside of Bentonville, Arkansas. UHP is dedicated to building the world's most elite fitness and nutrition entrepreneurs out of our veterans. To kick off our partnership, John and I climbed into the back of an armored Humvee to reminisce about the impact of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, what America did right, what we did wrong, and why the counter-terrorism battle's far from over. John also shares his thoughts on the Army today, how to fix recruiting, and why we must never forget that a special operator's job is to close with and destroy the enemy.
Fucking loved it. Like I wish it was my idea. Blowing dicks off from 3,000 miles away. Boop.
Don't miss our full Veterans Day coverage from UHP. Follow the Jedburgh Podcast and the Green Beret Foundation on social media. Listen on your favorite podcast platform. Read on our website or watch the full video version on YouTube as we show you why America must continue to lead from the front no matter the challenge.
Well, John, it's an honor to have you on the show, and it's awesome to be here with you in such a cool spot. I mean, University of Health and Performance, Matt Hesse and his crew here have done some absolutely amazing work out here, really in the middle of nowhere, a 500-acre farm, and they're working to provide fitness certifications as certified personal trainers and everything that goes into building a business around physical fitness for our veterans. And on this Veterans Day, we get to be a part of this, one small part of this big event that they're having.
Awesome. Yeah.
I want to talk for a bit about you and your career,
okay,
and kind of the evolution of that. And I don't know, I think about where to start. And I mean, you are the Sheriff of Baghdad.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I started in the Rangers, 175, right? I was in Seco, and then somewhere around 5 years in the Army, our sergeant major back then was like, you got to go give your experience to the big Army, right?
Yeah.
And then a guy in my platoon ended up on fucking orders to Korea. And I was like, what in the fuck? I don't know where Korea, I don't know anything. I don't even want to go to Korea. You know, all I heard was it was cold. You know what I mean? So anyway, I was like, yo, I can't be having that. I need to be in control of my own destiny, right? And another guy in my company had just got back from blood selection, right? And I asked him, I was like, yo, what was it like, you know, Special Forces selection? And he was like, man, honestly, it was kind of nothing you couldn't do every day. And I'm like, huh, I like doing stuff I can do every day, right? So I went to the Q course. I was in 7th group for, I don't know, less than a year, and then
So you're on vacation?
No, I did deploy. I did some mid-90s SF stuff, but that shit sucked.
What was mid-90s? I mean, we've talked so much, and been really fortunate on this show to have all the senior leadership at USASOG and First SFC, and we just sat down before this with General Diedrich, who was the first Special Forces Command commander and actually commanded Special Operations Command Korea before he went on to some other roles. But we always talk about what happened almost 9/11 and then after. But what were the 90s like?
You know, the 90s were a lot like now. It was fucked up. No bullets, no training, you know, like, because there was no war and we had been fighting Vietnam for so long, even in the Q course, it was still about Vietnam, right?
All the tactics, all the
everything was about Vietnam, you know, is a war behind. We weren't training for new shit. We were training for shit the guys knew what the fuck to do, but that situation's kind of over, you know what I mean? So we had no bullets, no fucking money to go train. Like the Army didn't have a budget. Like the 90s Special Forces fucking sucked, in my opinion. Maybe there's guys out there that disagree, right? Bring them here. I'll tell them they're smoking fucking crack because it sucked. We had no fucking bullets. We didn't train. We started to do a ton of paperwork in the 90s. This is when the Army went from like triplicate carbon copy to digital. But as soon as we went to digital, Word documents, shit like that, the paperwork ramped up.
Well, now it didn't take up space.
Right.
The files are in the computer.
They're in the computer. And then so now range control used to be like, go make coordinations with them. Now it's like 13-page document, a fucking risk assessment. Oh, well, CQB's high risk. It always has been, and we were doing it before now, but now we can't do it because we didn't get a signature.
But what did your warrant officers do before there was risk assessments that had to be written?
I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure what they did. Maybe, man, I don't know.
Now all the warrants will hate me. They'll send me hate mail.
Fuck them. Should have stayed enlisted, dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you wouldn't have had to do the paperwork. Your fault. I don't feel for him. You know what I mean? Chose your path, and your retirement was better too. So, last joke's on you. You get better retirement.
So you go through the 90s. You come into SF, and then you've got like this cataclysmic change on 9/11.
Yeah.
Talk about that. I mean, being there. Where were you, and how did that change? And I want to bring it up here because then I'm going to ask you about Afghanistan.
Okay. Yeah. 9/11. I was upping my jump numbers to go to the tandem bundle course. We were doing that. Now everybody does it, but we were doing that like way before people kind of knew what it was. And I was getting my jump numbers up. So I went out to the Rayford jump team, and the past few days, like what I would do is I would jump with the Black Golden Knights. I'd jump with the canopy accuracy teams. They go up to like 1,500, 1,800 feet. They get out, they land. I just needed jump numbers. So we were doing hop and pops with those guys. Plus it gets you pretty accurate and land in a canopy, you know?
Those guys are impressive, huh?
Super.
We had the Golden Knights on, the commander and the sergeant at D-Day.
Yeah.
And their episode, as of this recording, hasn't come out yet. It's going to come out in a couple of weeks. But I mean, I'll tell you, like when they talk about the precision on those things, it's insane.
It's legit. They're legit, right? So I was doing hop and pops, and then like we're getting ready to load the plane, and it was like stand down, and then it's like, hey, we're shut down, might as well go to the team room. So we go in the team room to just chill instead of like just being hot outside. And fucking like a plane crashed into the Twin Towers. The first one crashed, and it was like, look, some idiot crashed some little plane into the Twin Towers, because that's what it looked like on the TV, the first one. And then the second one hit, and then the planes were shut down. I had to go back to Bragg that day. Later, my squadron was already deployed overseas, and later that day I had to do a VTC as I was the senior representative for my squadron, you know what I mean? And like, where's A squadron stand on this, you know what I mean? And like, luckily, I think it was another squadron was on like alert, so that commander went first, and he's like, sir, men are packed and ready to conduct combat operations anywhere in the world within the spectrum of 1 hour. You know what I mean? Like, he gives us
straight out of the Q course manual.
I'm just like, I gotta go next. Like, I'm just E7. You know what I mean? I was just trying to get some jumps. And you know what I mean? Like, I'm about to go to Arizona. And then like, so I said everything he said. And then, but my squadron was like, deployed somewhere else, like closer to where we were going. So I'm like, my guys are already deployed. I added that part in there, and he just kind of like mad dogged me later. And you know what I mean? I listened to you, and I went up to you. You know what I'm saying? But I had a report, and who was it then at the time? Rumsfeld, and I forget who the JCS was, but they're like, hey, don't do anything. We're trying to, kind of stand down. We're trying to figure this out. But like, post would take 16 hours. When they closed post, it would take 16 hours to like get on post, and people would leave their cars and just fucking walk
off. Like,
and then a guy would show up at like 2:00 tomorrow, like, where you been all day? It's 2:00, you're late. And he's like, I walked from the gate. Like, whoa, that's like 18 miles for you. That's why it's 2:00 and I just made it. Like, you know what I mean? So guys had to walk on, they locked post down. I think the B squadron guys got on gun trucks and were cruising around the compound like there's a ghost plane out there that's going to hit us next. I don't know. It's kind of crazy times. And I don't know. I've never been the guy to like get caught in the spin. We're waiting till I'll spin when this is real. Until then, like, let's not do anything stupid today. And like, those guys did a ton of stupid shit. And I just figured, man, I figured it will happen when it happens, but those first few days were just so different than anything else I experienced. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there were the unknown when we think back to that, but I want to kind of fast forward to today.
Okay.
And we look at Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And we look at what's transpired. Is somewhere around the tune of $3 trillion, $2 trillion has been spent there.
Yeah.
We've got
Yeah.
We lost almost 2,500 servicemen and women. We had 20,000 wounded. SOF, all components of SOF, but really primarily, our Green Berets and our Army Special Forces carried a lot of the load for those 20 years, and then we left.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about that investment that we made and the fact that we're gone, what do you think?
I think anybody who's pissed about that didn't read the fine print when we went in. This is where fucking nations go to die. What the fuck did we think was going to happen? We're better than that? That's not going to happen to us? It was in the fine print, and we all knew it. The day I went in my first boot on the ground in Afghanistan, I knew this was going to be fucked up later. I'm not shocked.
Yeah.
At all.
And there's a lot of people who are so upset.
Yeah, well, hey, they didn't read the fine print. You should have looked at the original contract because, Alexander the Great was the only one to hang on to it for as long as he did, and he was way more brutal than we could ever be.
Yeah.
So
when you think about what's Special Forces mission, right? Special Forces mission, we're going to go to foreign nations, often under adversarial conditions. Yeah. We're going to identify portions of their military, whatever it might be, resistance forces, whatever the situation calls for. We're going to arm them, we're going to equip them, we're going to train them, and we're going to put them in combat operations either beside us or on our behalf.
Yeah.
That requires trust.
Yeah.
An incredible amount of trust that's developed over a long period of time. Now, if we think about when we first went into Afghanistan and we linked up with organizations like the Northern Alliance, we had some level of trust with them from fighting the Russians when we provide them with Stingers and other ammunition and weapons that help them to repel and hold off the Soviets. But now we fast forward to today, and we think about the reports that come out. Is Al Qaeda and the Taliban now reconstituted in Afghanistan? Are they working together? We presume so. We know. We're funding millions and millions of dollars a week as the U.S. over to Afghanistan while they continue to train to have their ultimate goal of revenge on the United States. If we got to go back, what happens?
We're going to fucking whoop that ass. Them motherfuckers can't even do jumping jacks. You know what I mean? They had 6 Blackhawks. They're down to fucking 1 because Ahmed fucking crashed the other 5 thinking he could fly. Look, it's a waste of our fucking time. It was a waste of our manpower, right? But the reality is like, we're going to go back and fight them, and they're going to have our equipment because our politicians generally don't know what the fuck they're doing and won't listen to DOD going, we can't leave $60 trillion worth of shit in a fucking savage country. Yeah. You just can't do that. You know what I mean? If they did leave all that shit, they should have just fucking EOD'd it or fucking air bombed it all into just fucking dust. Yeah. My 2 cents. The only thing I would have left the Afghans if I pulled this fucking country out of that, I'd have left them fucking gravel. The gravel we stood on. You can have that.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, what happens if the reports that we see are true. If the America's next fight is with a terrorist organization that comes out of Afghanistan, which presumably it may.
It'll never end.
Let's talk about Iraq for a second.
Okay.
Why were you the Sheriff of Baghdad?
Oh, yeah, man. I was always in Baghdad, first off. And then a buddy of mine, he was a State Department guy, and he ran the Crisis Action Center in the State Department. And he made these shirts. On the front, the Baghdad Embassy logo. On the back, it said Sheriff of Baghdad, serving strategic policy one citizen at a time, right? And no one in the State Department thought it was funny. So he ended up with a ton of these T-shirts he made as a joke, right? So later, this guy quit working for the State Department, came to work for me, right? And he was like, hey, Sergeant Major, what size are you? I'm like, I don't know, double, triple X. What do you got? And he's like, I got a ton of T-shirts. You want them? And I was like, yeah, dude, just give them to me. I'll wear, because we wear civvies for, I wear it for jiu-jitsu. I wear it for working out. Like, we don't wear uniforms, right? So I just started wearing these Sheriff of Baghdad shirts everywhere, sniper comps, pistol comps, 3 guns, anything I was doing, you know what I mean? And then a buddy of mine was like, one day was like, someone asked, like, where's that Sheriff of Baghdad guy you always with, right? And then it kind of came to be a joke. amongst a group of friends of ours, and then one of them's a business guy, and he's like, when I retired, right, like, if you're gonna do this, you got to be a business.
Yeah.
And as he's giving me this business talk, I have no idea what he's talking about because I'm an Army guy, right? He was like, and if I was gonna name a business, he's like, you'd be missing a big opportunity if you didn't use that Sheriff of Baghdad.
That's the branding.
Yeah.
Branding piece you don't think about when you're in the Army.
Yeah. And I was like, so what are you saying? He was like, if you open a business, name it the Sheriff of Baghdad. I was like, okay. And that's what I did.
And then that's your overnight success.
Boom. Yeah.
We've talked about Iraq in a number of different episodes that we've had over the years. You know, I went to Iraq 3 times. You probably went 3 times that.
Yeah.
But
yes. Correct.
Yes. We look back at that conflict, you know, and you said about Afghanistan, what did we expect when we set forth there? And what that makes me think about the Iraq piece.
Yeah.
You know, we went into that country and we disbanded all of their legitimate forces.
We did.
What's your take on the decisions that were made early on in that conflict about disbanding the army, the police, and every organization, and then creating some semblance of chaos?
Yeah. We fucked that up big time. Like, you can't do that. You can't just get rid of the fucking whole army like that. You know what I mean? I mean, okay, Saddam was very meticulous, right? He might have been a fucking devil. His kids were definitely fucking demons and evil, that's for sure, right? However, Saddam had a good grip on the Middle East in general. He had a good grip on Iran. He had fucking Iran in check, right? He had the Middle East in check, right? So what Saddam did as a super clever guy is he put like different, you know, you got Sunni, you got Shia, you got Kurds, you know what I mean? He put the Shia in charge of the Sunni battalions. So he mixed it up to where these units were as powerful they could be, and he separated them by religion. And, you know, we put all the Shia by the Sunnis so the Sunni won't fuck with them, and vice versa, right? So he was very clever in picking these military commanders and placing them. Very good at this, right? And I think he was winning the war against Iran also, would be my opinion, all those years. Like, no matter how many people they lost, he was actually keeping Iran in check, you know? So I think overall, the biggest mistake we could have been is just fucking scatter those guys to the 4 wind because we're too lazy to fucking pay for it, but yet we're not paying anyway. And then I would tell you this is like, look, in general, I would say this. We had enough money to buy where the fuck Saddam was without ever firing a shot. Why the fuck didn't we just spend that money? Because I would have rather gave someone $1 trillion and got him than have the fight for 20 years, all those fucking needless deaths of all the fucking sons of this country. You know what I'm saying? So Saddam had a great hold over Iraq, and we fucking blew that.
Why'd we go
to Iraq?
Yeah.
Fucking WMDs, baby. WMDs. Huh?
We never found them.
Yeah, they found tons of shit.
Yep.
All them chemical weapons in Syria, them came from Iraq.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the smoking gun is out there. We've seen evidence of it. It's just no one wants to admit it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The nuke program, he had all the precursors. He had everything we thought he had. You know what I mean? That the smoking gun was found. It just, the news never put it out.
Yeah.
You know, but all them chemical weapons went right to fucking Syria.
I know there's a lot of reports, I mean, even in open source reporting about, you know, the convoys leaving in the early days of the war as we were coming up from the south and, you know, getting out of there, going into Syria. And we've been, now we've been in Syria for quite a long time.
Yeah.
You know, continuing to fight ISIS, and were by and large pretty successful there.
Yeah.
What was the difference there than in Iraq?
Oh, man. Honestly, like, I would say the difference is Syria can never be tamed, and it'll always be a problem for us. So we have to work with the fucking people that are there, right? And this is a British concept, and this is what the British government does that we don't do, right? And a lot of times the SAS guys wouldn't come with us is, we'll go kill that motherfucker, but we'll create the power vacuum. And a lot of governments won't do that. They don't create the power vacuum. What they do is they play all sides. And when you play all sides, you end up being the ones needed. And this is a British strategy, right, for the wars, right? So what ends up happening in Syria is we play all sides. We're super needed. In Iraq, we didn't play all sides. We get rid of the army. We try to create our own. Look what happens with the Afghanistan army. Can't even do fucking jumping jacks. Like those videos, they're fucking terrible. You know what I mean? But that's what's going to happen when you try to create your own army.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You talked about Iran. Certainly Iran's front and center in the news. I mean, now every day, as we've seen the escalation in the Middle East, they're we can't even call it a proxy war anymore with Israel because they're directly bombing each other.
Yeah, there's the proxy part. Take that away. This is war.
Where does this go?
Fuck, I don't know, but I'm going to tell you this. Thank God, as a nation, we don't have the balls to stop Israel early. Because what happens is every time the Palestinians kick off, we tell Israel, stop it. But did the problem get solved?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Under the situation of doing things right, this problem's going to have to get solved. How does the problem get solved? Well, I would say the people that want everyone dead have to get killed. That's how you win a war, right? And then everyone says, like, especially in America, like, I have guys like, oh, we just need to kill everybody. Nazis tried that. That doesn't work either. We can't kill everybody. You know
Is there
what I mean?
a diplomatic solution?
Probably, yeah. But we'll never see that. I mean, that means two grown men got to fucking eat crow as the head of their countries and fucking sit at a table and be like, okay, booby, you do this, I'll do that. And then both of them are going to be like, no, they're drawing lines in the sand.
Yeah.
Everything's negotiable. War is only a failure of fucking politicians and politics. And I'd tell you this, like, I had a fucking real high-level terrorist tell me one time, this war never was about religion. It's about money and power. It's all those guys want. It's not about fucking ideology. It's not about any of it. But isn't that what our politicians want here? Money and power. So that's the way I've always seen the war on terror. This is for money and power. That's it.
When you look across the Middle East and the conflict that's going on now, and I don't disagree with you that money, power is a big part of that. What keeps Iran in check?
Nothing. What keeps them in check? I'll tell you, what's kept them in check after Soleimani died is they don't have the networking to pull off any big moves, right? Because that one guy has all the network. And as soon as that guy's gone, you got to rebuild a network. But that network has been dismantled so many times over by now that how potent is this network, even though it has new leadership? And it takes time for these to gain potency. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What did you think about the pager incident?
Fucking loved it. Like, I wish it was my idea. Blowing dicks off from 3,000 miles away. Boop. I thought it was great. I did. I'm not going to lie. Am I not supposed to think
No,
that?
I think there's a lot of us who felt that way.
Right.
I think that it was you've been around covert clandestine operations. You're clear, we all have here.
Yeah.
And you think about the amount of planning that has to go into something like that. And planning's one thing, right? The technology to be able to do it, that's all one component. When I look at it, I look at just the balls to make the decision to execute that mission.
Yo, let's go. There's 1 million people with those balls here, and every day we got told no to clever shit. Let's go. More America, more clever shit in war. You know what I mean? Like, we're the smartest motherfuckers out there. We're the unconventional warfare guys of the fucking century. They should have got that from us 20 years ago. No. We all know the Israelis are pretty good at a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? But look, this should be our playback, We should be fucking and then you always wonder how the I always wondered, like, you ever wonder, like, how does Israel get all their intel on these guys? Like, how do they know this shit? Because I'm going to tell you this, like, when we went into Iraq or Afghanistan, there was fucking no intel. Our agency was fucking worthless, man, in my opinion, right? Like, we're doing operations to gain intel. I think for years, how do these guys get all their intel? How do they know all this? This is how embedded they are. And really, like, them motherfuckers was AT&T that shit the whole time. Like, they had all the messages. They didn't even have to do the pagers. The fucking, pagers, iPads, phones. I fucking love every minute of this. Like, You know what I mean? And then they blow up later and like, oh, this pager's a little warm in my pocket. Boof. Guy falls sideways. I loved it, man. And I think the future should be filled with a ton more of this shit. And I'd also tell America, hey, we need to start doing assassinations again. You know what I mean? Because no one respects us in the fucking world. Hey, okay, we're bad neighbors, and we've proved ourselves to be bad neighbors, and I'm not going to fucking lie about that. But the reality is like, we're bad neighbors that'll come fuck you up. You know what I mean? That makes good neighbors. You know what I'm saying?
There's a big change right now in the culture of the military. We see it in the news. We see it in the news. We see it all over the place, and where it really manifests itself is in the recruiting numbers.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we know, that you certainly know, is that it takes a certain person, certain psyche, certain set of character traits, mental capability to be able to do the job of a special operator. Not only, a special operator who may wear the Green Beret or Ranger tab, but also to go to an organization like Delta, and the SEALs. We'll include the SEALs in that conversation.
You could take that back. You could.
Well,
we don't have to.
I didn't say they were on parity. I just said,
I'm excluding the SEALs. I want everyone to know. I want to exclude you guys.
All right, it's just the SEAls.
He's nicer than I am.
SEAls are out. But it does take a certain type of person to go and do that.
Real talk.
And what we've seen over the last couple of years, which we could credit, down probably to about a decade ago, is a significant reduction in the recruiting capability of specifically the Army, but the broader military. What do you think is attributing to that reduction?
Man, I don't know what would be contributing to it, but I would say this. We didn't have an army before World War II. We fielded 6 million men fucking quick, you know what I'm saying? And when America gets pissed off, you're done, you know what I mean? So, we see this drawdown army. This happens every time there's no conflict. And as soon as some shit sparks up, a new generation of kids is going to be like, yo, I want in on this shit. You know what I mean? So I don't worry about it at all. And I think the recruiting is always going to be an ebb and flow. And Americans only want to be patriotic when it comes time to be patriotic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't think there's I don't think there's a lack in recruiting. I just think this is always like the tide. It's an ebb and flow. Sometimes the Army's got more people than they need. Sometimes. You know what I mean? They're giving out fucking a lot of money to get scrubs, whoever the fuck they get. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just how nature, the nature of things, history, how it works.
So I'm going to put some viewer feedback into the conversation too.
Okay.
Over the last couple months, as we've done kind of our tour of all the senior leadership within SOF, we also had Sergeant Major Weimer on.
Mikey was one of my new guys, and I lived next to Mikey for like 15, 20 years. Mikey moved. The only reason I don't live next to him now is he moved. You know what I mean?
He was great.
Mikey's awesome.
Great interview with him. His perspective on, I think they got the right man in the job right there.
Amen.
As a Sergeant Major of the Army. But a topic that comes up a lot from viewer feedback is the Army's woke. Is the Army woke?
Yeah. Fuck yeah. It's the fucking Pentagon and all them fucked up officers, right? 2009. In World War II, there was 12 officers, right, for like every 100 men. In 2009, it was 70 fucking 2. Think about that. Where the fuck are these 72 officers at? They're not in your company. Because you only got one captain. Where the fuck, a major in an SF company, and he's only got so many guys. That ain't a big lot of guys, right? Where the fuck are these officers? And that would be my fucking thing is, yeah, the ruling class of the military has always been fucking liberals. Always. And it goes back to the Civil War. And if you read pre-Civil War books, people thought as a nation we were too big to fail then also. You know what I mean? So the wokeness comes from these officers and these schools ingraining them to be woke. But the reality is the Army needs to do two things only: kill the bad guys and break their shit. The rest is fucking bullshit, in my opinion.
How do you reinstitute that culture?
Yeah, you get rid of the fucking pussies up top and you stop leveling the truth, and you start just saying it like it is. That's how it starts. A culture of honesty. You know what I mean? And look, I was a troop sergeant major in Iraq. I had 56 guys under me every night, man. I had all races, all colors, it didn't fucking matter. Do your job, pull your weight, and the guys did, normally flawlessly, but none of that shit mattered. And then, look, I got to come back from fucking war to an America that's more racially divided than ever when, like, I didn't have any racial problems my whole fucking life, including my whole 20 years in the Army. It's made up problems. You know what I mean? I never had any problems like that with any of the guys, man. We did our job, you do your job, I do my job. Let's go. It doesn't matter to the guys.
Yeah.
Never mattered to me.
Yeah. Fitting that we have the national anthem playing in the background. Chase Rice back there.
Amen.
Been able to talk to a lot of the senior officers, we've had on the show. And it's funny because people ask me all the time, they say, well, you get to talk to all the senior officers, and we've really started bringing in a lot of the sergeant majors, and we've even talked to a number of the senior warrant officers to start getting their perspective. And I'll tell you that the episodes and interviews we do with the sergeant majors do better than the ones we do with the officers.
Yeah.
And what I ask a lot of the officers is, talk about the relationship with your NCOs. Talk about the importance of the NCO Corps. But I want to kind of ask you that same question is, when we talk about building a professional army, when we look at what it takes to do the things that you're talking about and change that culture, it's going to rest on the NCOs.
Yeah. So
what do we need from that next generation of NCOs to stand up and prepare for this next fight?
Yeah, man. Every time we got new guys, I would always, one time I got the first pick of new guys. So my boss was like, hey, what guy do you want? How, and then like, am I going to pick the best shooter? Am I going to pick the fastest, the strongest, the best PT guy? Who am I going to pick? I get to pick the first one. And I said, walk him through my team room. I want the guy that says this place is dirty. And here's why. That's the fucking smart guy. He's clean. He's fucking smart. I'll train him to shoot. I can train him to free fall. I can train him to do anything. But if this guy's the smartest guy out of the fucking group, that's exactly who I want. So I'd tell any kids joining, be fucking smart. You don't have to be strong. You can learn strength. I learned strength. I wasn't prepared. I didn't even know what rip was when I was fucking ripping it. You know what I mean? Like, so my point is I would tell anybody, try to be the smartest guy in the room, because generally the smartest guy in the room is going to be the best commando.
Yeah. As you go through your evolution through your career, especially now, we talk a lot about PTSD experiences that people have.
Yeah.
Right now, I bring it up at this point because we've got a large portion of the GWAT generation of operator is retiring.
Yeah.
Okay, they're either out, but I mean, it's a timeline thing.
Yeah.
More than anything else. 2001 was 23 years ago. So everyone who's hit 20s coming out, and then those few who are now sergeant majors or colonels and above are the ones who are going to advance. Everybody else is capping out, and they're going to be gone. So in the next 4 or 5 years, those numbers are going to continue to degrade in terms of the GWAT generation. So you have a lot of folks coming out, and what we don't have is, because we're not in a conflict, is we don't have the military in the news every day. And what we saw through GWAT was that it was easy to run a nonprofit for veterans because You just had to say, I'm a nonprofit for veterans, we need money, and people just threw you money. Well, that dries up when you're not in the news every day. And then we have, other situations around the country in terms of economic policy and all that have obviously changed some winds. But now, almost more than ever, we have this large percentage of folks who have all sorts of physical and mental ailments who are now coming into the veteran community. Number one, how do we handle that? And number two, what's your perspective on this conversation around PTSD, and how do we actually go about treating it?
First off, I don't think it's a veteran thing. I think it's a human condition. You're fucking 5 years old. Your family gets run over by a train in front of you. Tell me that's not PTSD, right? So I think PTSD is a human condition in general. I don't think it's exclusive to soldiers. So I personally do not believe in PTSD. I don't believe in the symptoms, and I believe PTSD is you get stuck in the same chapter in your book, and no book has one chapter, right? And there's fucking shit that's going to happen in your life that could be great. We don't even know it yet, but unless we turn that page, we're not going to get there. I believe in TBI. I believe in a lot of other stuff, but I think PTSD is one of those things that, like, there's a lot of stuff to overcome, right? And I've had every symptom. I've been driving home, be forgetful, cognitive function, right? Eat some fucking avocados. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm telling you is, I thought I had PTSD, and then over time, diet, exercise, I turned out that I had several other problems that I had to fix first, right? And then when I talk to guys that, my buddies who, are feeling the PTSD crunch from time to time, right? That's normal for guys. My first question's always, you're angry every day. Oh, I get it, right? Yeah. How many bottles of booze did you drink last night? 2? Cut it down to 1 a night. I'm not going to tell you not to drink. I wouldn't do that. I love the booze. However, what I would tell you is, don't drink 2 fucking bottles. You're hungover. That's why you're an asshole every day. You're hungover. So a lot of times guys will try to fix it, not knowing what's going on, and they make it worse for themselves, right? And I would tell everybody, man, look, cognitive functions, your brain, like if you're in the fog, this is brain shit. You can go in oxygen chambers. I do it all the time. Avocados, MCT oils, there's tons of ways to fix cognitive function. And what I'm telling you is, you start breaking this stuff down, you'll see that this is a little bit fixable, more so than the last chapter where, like, my buddies are just like, woe is me, and I'll have to go over there and smack them in the face. No, let's go. Like, let's keep going, right? So I'm not a big, look, I'm not going to coddle anybody. I'm going to fucking shoot it to you straight. But at the same time, like, I think PTSD is curable. I think it's something where you just learn strategies of how to cope with what happens, right? Look, a lot of soldiers lack cognitive functions because of fucking several reasons. Horrible diet, right? Look, electrolytes. You could be severely dehydrated. Most of what I find is food and diet would fix a lot of this for guys, but you can't get them to do that until they understand that that would actually work for them. And I think people don't say that because the VA, just like me, they just want you to take your fucking Percocets. Yeah. Take your fucking Oxycontins. Take your, what did they give me? Fucking Dilaudids. They give me Dilaudids. That's what I get. And I'm just like, after a couple years of getting fat, of fucking taking all these pills, I'm like, I'm done with these fucking pills. I'm done with being broke. I'm done with being told I'm fucking broke. And I'm figuring this shit out. And here I am. So if anybody, takes it hard that I don't believe in PTSD, I cured myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can cure yourself too. Anybody can. And really, it's just about turning the page, man. I didn't think I'd be here at 50. Yeah, me neither. Fucking welcome to the club, buddy. We're all going to die. Don't let it ruin your day. Can we move on, And let's have a good time, by the way, if we can, I think people lose those simple kind of insights, right? So I'm not a big PTSD guy. I do believe I've had it. The VA says I have 0 of it, technically. But the reality is I think most guys, it's several different little things that they can start to chip away at to start getting better right fucking now. You know what I mean?
So a couple of things you're doing today,
Yeah.
shooting
Yeah.
and jujitsu.
Yeah.
So why are they important in your daily routine? And, and why is something like jujitsu important? We talked about that a couple of times on the show with a couple of guests. And we talk about, like, my son asked me I had a tooth pulled, the wisdom tooth had to come out last weekend. And I was on Saturday. On Sunday, I was working out at my house. And my son, he's 4 years old. He looks at me, he says, Dad, I don't understand. You had a tooth pulled yesterday, but you're working out today. And I looked at him and I said, Adrian, because I'm strong. If you're strong in life, then it makes everything else easier. And I truly believe that. And jiu-jitsu is one of those things.
I agree. Okay. Jiu-jitsu. First off, if I don't just fucking wear myself out every day, like fucking smoke myself, there's a good chance at some point today I will be a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? If I just get wore the fuck out today, there's a good chance I'm just going to be giggling the rest of the day because I'm too tired to give a fuck. So I wear myself out every day, one. I think the next thing with jiu-jitsu is a couple things for old guys, right, is I go to this doctor and he like puts the blood pressure cuff on me and I'm like, he's like, holy cow, your resting heart rate's like 60. You just walked in the room. Like, how's your blood pressure so good? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? He was like, what have you been doing lately? And I told him, I do forced joint manipulation. And he was like, oh, I've heard of this. This is really good. Jiu-jitsu. If I told him I was doing jiu-jitsu, the fucking guy would tell me quit immediately, right? But I'm like, I do forced joint manipulation. He's like, oh, you look more mobile. You look healthier than ever, right? So as an old guy, I use jiu-jitsu as cardio. I use it as weight training. I use it as conditioning. And then, believe it or not, fuckers janking on my limbs has really helped my mobility. You know what I mean? My flexibleness, and then all of that leads to I'm stronger, I'm more flexible, I can do more than ever. You know what I mean? Fuck, I started, with the lauded, I couldn't even teach. Literally, I think my first year of classes was like 6 classes for a year. And I do like 100 or 200 now, easy, and I do jiu-jitsu, right? So it's my sanity. And I would tell anybody, every human being should be taking an hour to 2 hours a day on themselves as some type, whether you fucking meditate, whether you don't meditate, whether you think about crazy shit, call it meditation. I don't fucking know, but whether you work out, whether you do jiu-jitsu, people got to do this, right? And then it's almost like, have you ever been around working dogs? Like the Malinois need about 4 to 5 hours of fucking work a day or they're biting someone in the team room. You know what I mean? I feel the same way. And I don't think I'm animalistic in any way. I think it's just a human thing. Like, man, when we're wore out, we're fit, we're happy, we're healthy. Like, I'm a little tired. I'm as nice as you be, man. I ain't got jits in a couple days. What the fuck you want? You know what I mean?
And you're focused.
Yeah, I'm focused. I stay focused. I stay sharp. I look at it this way. I try to learn something every day, and I always want to learn new skills. Always. I don't care what they are.
I think that's critical. Yeah. Well, here's what they tell you, John. Because I was an officer.
Yeah.
And they tell you, if you want to know the truth, go sit down with the sergeant major. So appreciate you sitting down. We hop in the back of this Humvee, kicking it back and telling it like it is.
I was kind of, I don't know, when we sat in the Humvee at first, it was like a little cramped. I was a little, I don't know. And then, but yeah, hey, I'm glad I could be here, right? I'm glad Matt invited me to, we got helicopters flying over now.
Is getting real.
As soon as this helicopter flies over, I'm going to jump up on the Top Gun, But yeah, but I'm glad Matt invited me out here, University of Health and Human Performance, right? I'm just glad to be here, and I'm glad to share my story because, man, I was the fucking fat guy on pills, you know what I mean? And I was 100% disabled veteran, and I believed it. And as soon as I fucking stopped believing that shit, I figured out I just chipping away at it to get better, man. And that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Well, when our service ends, we got a lot more to do, man.
Yeah. Amen. Hey, your book ain't one chapter. That's right. You know what I mean? Like, look, you get out of the service, your book may not even be a halfway done. Fucking turn the page, move on. There's great shit that's going to happen, but you ain't going to get there till you turn that page.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
American Jedburghs went on to form the foundation of the United States Special Forces and the Special Activities Directorate of the Central Intelligence Agency. Thanks for listening to the Jedburgh Podcast, an official program of the Green Beret Foundation. I'm your creator and host, Fran Racioppi. Join us next week for a new episode on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube for full episodes, highlights, and other long and short form content. If you like what you heard, give us a like and leave a review. Follow the Jedburgh Podcast and the Green Beret Foundation on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, or Threads. Send your comments and inquiries to fran@jedburghpodcast.com. As former members of Special Operations Forces, the Jedburgh Media Channel and the Green Beret Foundation remain committed to supporting all generations of U.S. Army Special Forces and their families. Thanks for joining us on this episode. How you prepare today determines success tomorrow.